September 24, 1971, was the last day at the time 16-year-old Kathy Marie Moulton was seen. Kathy planned to attend a dance during the night in her hometown of Portland, Maine. She asked her father to drop her off on Cumberland Avenue that evening. Kathy wanted to purchase a pair of pantyhose and some toothpaste before preparing for the dance. She stopped by a music store on Forest Avenue later in the day to visit a friend. She told her friend she would see her at the dance that evening and then said she was going to walk home, which was about 1.5 miles away. She was last seen walking down Forest Avenue after leaving the music store, and she was seen carrying a brown leather Mexican clutch purse, which contained her house key to tubes of toothpaste and a very small amount of cash. When she didn't arrive home by dinner time, her parents knew something was wrong and reported her missing. Kathy was seen in a stolen blue Cadillac with her friend named Lester Everett. Though it is possible that Kathy willingly left with him, there were reported sightings of Kathy, Lester, and another young man in a remote area of Aroostook County a few weeks after her disappearance. The second young man was Ronald Reed Purley. However, Lester was eventually found alone, and he claimed to not know where Kathy was. A garage employee at Fort Fairfield in Aroostook County remembered seeing Kathy, Lester, and Ronald. They came to the garage to buy new tires for the Cadillac. The employee said Ronald appeared to be controlling Kathy's movements, even walking her to and from the bathroom with his hand on the back of her neck. Across the border on the Tobique Reserve, witnesses said they saw Lester and Kathy for a few days in September 1971 before the two went to a farm in the Mars Hill area of Aroostook County, where they started working on a potato field at McBride's farm. Kathy was completely distrusting of Lester and continually begged to go back home to Portland, which he refused. Kathy befriended a teenage girl who worked on the fields. The girl said Kathy was nervous about her parents being upset with her and that they were probably looking for her. According to the girl, Kathy also cried often and seemed fearful of the other men working on the farm. She often said she wanted to go home. Lester became tired of Kathy's constant complaining to go home. So on the evening of September 29th, 1971, while the other field workers were enjoying a bonfire, Lester got behind the wheel of the stolen car with Kathy in the passenger seat, told her that they were going for a ride. He begged him to drive her back home, but he didn't. Lester returned the next morning and said that he had dropped her off at another camp, when in reality, he had brought her back across the Canadian border to the Tobique Reserve and left her with Ronald. At the end of the potato harvest, Lester and a few others left for Florida to pick oranges. He never returned to Maine, and when questioned, he said he did not know what happened to Kathy. Lester died of cancer in the mid-1980s at the age of 35. Ronald, who had served time for rape and home invasion, has long been a prime suspect in this investigation. He has refused to cooperate with police, even when he was offered immunity from prosecution if he would provide details as to what happened to Kathy. Investigators have considered the possibility that Kathy was killed by Lester and that he left her body in the woods of Aroostook County. But this theory is unlikely since some of Ronald's relatives would later verify the fact that Lester had dropped her off at their home, and they would claim that one of their relatives had harmed her. It's unknown if this is what happened. His family has refused to cooperate with police about Kathy as well. Investigators believe she died on the Tobique Reserve sometime before Thanksgiving of 1971, but they never had enough evidence to file charges against anybody or even get warrants to search Ronald's family home. In 1983, a hunter said he came across a skeleton in the woods near Smyrna, Maine, surrounded by female clothing. Some investigators believe the remains were Kathy's. The hunter was unable to retrace his footsteps and lead police back to the site, however, and the bones were never seen again. Kathy was a junior at Deering High School at the time of her disappearance, and her peers said she seemed like a happy girl with no reason to run away from home. Her father died in 2017, but her mother is still alive and continues to hope for resolution in her case. Mary Virginia Carpenter was a 21-year-old girl from Texarkana, Texas, who went missing in Denton in the summer of 1948. She was last seen by a taxi driver around 9:30 p.m. on Tuesday, June 1, 1948. She left her home in Texarkana and took a train to Denton, 6 hours away. At the station, she took a taxi to the Texas Women's University, where she was planning to complete a summer term. She transferred from the University of Arkansas after she decided she wanted to enter a different career field. Mary first enrolled in the Texas Women's University during the 1945-1946 school year, and then took a break from school to help her mother, who had fallen ill. And to save money, Mary once again enrolled in the school for the 1948 summer term, where she planned to begin training as a laboratory technician in the autumn. But she disappeared just before the summer term began. The cab driver who had seen her last, Edgar Ray Zachary, later stated, he stopped in front of Brackenridge Hall, a building on campus, at 9 p.m., and Mary gave him a ticket for her trunk and paid him $1 so he would pick it up for her from the train station the next day. Edgar stated that after she got out of the taxi, Mary approached two young men standing near a yellow convertible that he believed to be a Pontiac. Edgar stated that one of the men was tall and the other one was chunky. Mary approached the men as if she knew them and began to speak to them, and Edgar, assuming they were just her friends, drove away. She never checked into her dorm in Brackenridge Hall and was never seen or heard from again. After this moment, some of Mary's former boyfriends stated she became infatuated easily and speculated that she ran away with a lover. But her family did not believe that she would leave without telling them, as Mary was very close with her family, and it would just be completely out of character. She had previously been engaged, but broke off the relationship just weeks prior to the wedding. Police zeroed in on her boyfriend, Kenny Branham, and the cab driver, Edgar. Kenny passed the polygraph test and insisted that Mary would have no reason to run away. She didn't have a lover coaxing her to run off, no jealous exes, no wishes to leave her life behind. Kenny was also the first to report Mary missing to her mother, making his involvement unlikely. On top of that, Mary was looking forward to starting her semester at college. This led investigators to conclude that she had been taken. Police shifted their attention to Edgar and learned he had a record for petty crimes and a reputation for being abusive. He was charged with attempted rape in 1957, but the charge was dropped after the victim asked authorities not to prosecute. Edgar's wife stated he had been home with her from 10 p.m. onwards on the day Mary disappeared. But 10 years after her disappearance, his wife told police she lied to them, and her husband had not actually arrived home until 2 or 3 a.m. that night. Edgar died in 1984. He was never charged in connection with Mary's case, but he remains a suspect, although he did pass the polygraph test in her case. In the winter and spring of 1946, 5 people were murdered in Lovers Lanes in Mary's hometown of Texarkana. Lovers Lane is a secluded area where people kiss or engage in sexual activity in their vehicles. This meant all 5 victims were young, around Mary's age. The crimes are believed to have all been committed by the same person. The murderer was never caught. It became known as the Texarkana Phantom Killer. Mary was actually well acquainted with 3 of the killer's victims, creating suspicion that her case was linked with these murders, but police found no evidence to support this theory. In 1998, police received a tip that 2 men had raped and killed Mary shortly after her disappearance, and buried her body in a dam at a stock tank near the Texas Women's University campus. The suspects were both deceased by this time. However, police investigated this den based on the information, but uncovered no evidence. Numerous leads and possible sightings of Mary have surfaced throughout the decades, but no solid evidence has been uncovered. Both of Mary's parents have passed away, and she was an only child. But her 3 cousins still hope to find closure in this case one day. Like Mary, Army veteran Alvin Matlock was also 21 years old at the time that he went missing in the spring of 1951. There were a lot of theories as to what happened to him, but none of them were pleasant. Alvin was last seen in Spokane, Washington, and at the time of his disappearance, he lived in a cabin on Browns Mountain in Spokane County. His little brother, Clyde, who was 12 years old when Alvin disappeared, is now 83 and to this day still hopes his brother's body is found. Clyde and his wife, Patricia, went to the inaugural missing person event hosted by the Spokane County Medical Examiner's office in 2016. At this event, which was held to help facilitate locating missing people, attendees could file police reports, submit DNA and dental records, and provide photographs of loved ones. Alvin had spoken to family members in March and informed them of his cabin's location. As far as his disappearance, his family first suspected something wasn't right when Alvin didn't show up to the family dinner on Thanksgiving Day, 1951. His worried mother drove to his cabin on Browns Mountain to find the cabin empty and both of his vehicles gone. The family was told by a neighbor that he had quietly packed up and gone to Alaska. Clyde and other family members believed this for a while, mostly because they wanted to. But as the years passed and there was no contact from Alvin, it became clear he was not in Alaska. The story going around was that Alvin was having an affair with a married woman and had got into a fight with the woman's husband when he found out about what was going on. Some people believe that the woman shot Alvin during the scuffle, with reports from alleged neighbors saying they heard his cries for help and that the couple just likely let him die. There was no body ever found. Police investigated these claims, but with no body, they couldn't make any arrests. There are no records of Alvin ever having lived in Alaska. However, according to family, Alvin was a loner and a big outdoorsman, and him moving to Alaska wouldn't he be that far-fetched, especially since life in Alaska wouldn't he really be that far off from the lifestyle that he was living in his cabin on Browns Mountain. Still, with no records of Alvin living in Alaska and the complete cease of contact from Alvin's end, it still just doesn't add up. And some suspicion was also placed on the neighbor who reported that he moved to Alaska. Patricia Matlock had done some detective work of her own, trying to find new leads and track down possible witnesses. It was all to no avail. During the missing person event back in 2016, all Clyde could do was hand over some photographs of his brother and provide his DNA in the hopes that someday his brother's remains would be found and identified. Foreign.